one of the next exciting accessibility innovations of 2022 was probably seeing how Sony brought screen reader functions to their A7IV camera. This is pretty crazy because they took what so many people think is such a visual tool, which it is in many ways, but brought features of a screen reader to the menu system on the camera, which basically means that you can use the arrow keys just like anybody else would to navigate through the menu, but it's going to read out loud the items that are in the menu, which is super cool and exciting because for me, when I use cameras, like I'm filming this video on right now, it can be really hard to use and navigate through the menu because no matter how close I look, I can't see or read the text on the screen. But with these new features, it's still definitely a beta version and being figured out, but people who are blind are able to hear the features in the menu system, and eventually I assume these features would evolve into, as you change your shutter speed or your aperture, it's going to be reading those out loud as well. I just think that's super duper exciting. I've gotten into cameras since my vision loss as a way to help clearly capture things around me and be able to share that perspective with others. And at first I thought this was like super ironic because, oh, why would the visually impaired person be into something that's so visual? But the more and more I got into it, I thought it made sense. Like, if you can't see well, why wouldn't you use a tool that can see well? And then the better I got at this, I thought, I feel like it's not just me that would like this. I feel like cameras should be made even more accessible because in so many ways they are. And continuing to improve these features would allow more people to capture sight and experience this not just for themselves, but to share it with other people. So it's amazing to see these improvements that Sony is trying to make. Plus, there's other features of this camera that help make it accessible. The autofocus technology is getting so much better in cameras because one of the hardest things for me to do is to make sure focus is right. Mostly if I had to rely on manual focus or had a really bad lens. But with how good autofocus is these days, it's really nice that I'm able to not have to think about it that much. And in the A7IV, the autofocus is very, very good. And so that's one less thing to have to think about for someone who has some level of a visual impairment that isn't able to see the focus as well. Also, they have cool features like the buttons have different like tactile tactile ways to distinguish them, and you're able to more easily differentiate them when which I think is another feature that is cool for anybody, because if you're holding up the camera looking through the viewfinder, you're not looking at the buttons that you're trying to press to adjust different settings. So the more that anybody could be more tactile is a great thing, and is a super exciting way where when you make your products more accessible for people with disabilities, there's going to be ways that it's going to benefit everybody and make just a better experience overall. And you'll find innovative solutions that you wouldn't have thought of otherwise. And I think the Sony A7IV becoming more accessible is really exciting. And I think it's also a really cool area where companies like Sony and also even Apple in certain ways have done, they're able to release beta versions of accessibility features. And I think a lot of large tech companies, you don't always see these super beta features. We wait till they wait till they're very polished and ready. But I think it's a place where the progress should be applauded, and is very cool that they're able to have a beta, put it out there, get feedback. I think is amazing.